Hi, welcome to the Daiku podcast and Daiku Game Pitch. And joining me today is Opti, who is from Fragging Unicorns, and he is going to be talking about the new game Subversion. So, Opti, welcome.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. That music got me pumped up.
It does. It kind of gets me nervous. I get all stumbly when I start going. But anyways, pleasure to have you on the show today, and I'm excited to hear more about your game. But first of all, where are you coming from today?
Today, I'm broadcasting live from Fort Worth, Texas.
Cool. And for those that might not know your history, before we get into the game, just tell us a little bit how you came into the game design world.
So it's probably not the most straightforward way, but I started a Shadowrun podcast. I don't know, about a decade ago or so. It was an in-character podcast about the lore of Shadowrun. So I'd go through like each episode would be like a certain amount of years, and then I would explain the lore and whatnot. And it's still going, and we're still doing that. But over time, I sort of leveraged that to get to know some of the folks who are making the Shadowrun RPG, and started writing for Shadowrun quite a bit. And then the last couple years, we started Fragging Unicorns games, and have been doing that pretty much with the majority of our time. Even though, again, still doing the podcasts, still doing actual play podcasts, still doing Shadowrun writing and collaborating with those guys. But yeah, Fragging Unicorns is sort of our main focus lately.
And by your previous games and your work in Shadowrun and Misspent Youth, you seem to kind of like that kind of sci-fi post-apocalyptic punk elements. That's your comfort zone?
Yeah. It's sort of like, write what you know, right? And although I don't consider myself a cyberpunk mercenary, there's a thread of rebellion. There's a thread of sort of anti-authoritarian stuff that runs through all of our games. There's a thread of hope, which is we could talk a little bit about this, but part of why instead of just continuing to write Shadowrun, right, we're deciding to do something that sort of pushes the envelope a little bit further, even into the punk side of things, right? The rebellion, the hope, the sort of alternative to cyberpunk. Instead of leaning into cyberpunk, we're sort of like pushing back against cyberpunk in a cyberpunk context. So yeah, it seems to be a sweet spot for us.
Cool. Well, let's just jump right into it then. Let's bring up the screen. Subversion. Tell us what's the pitch here. What kind of world you mentioned already? You're pushing back against cyberpunk.
Yeah. So the 10-second pitch is you are an envoy, which is like a representative or an ambassador, problem solver for your own community, whatever that might be. And you are taking direct action to serve and to save the people in your community in the backdrop of a cyberpunk fantasy city called Neo Babylon. That's as quick as I can make it. I think we can unpack it from there.
And at the top, you've got magic, technology, and rebellion, so that kind of sums it up quite nicely as well.
Yeah. And obviously there's going to be some comparisons to Shadowrun because cyberpunk fantasy, is the genre, and that's a thing. There's also, I think, at least 2 or 3 other Kickstarters going on right now with the cyberpunk fantasy theme, so that's kind of fun.
Well, one of the things that I actually kind of liked about the artwork, and we're going to see a lot more of it later on, but it's kind of the cyberpunk world in what I would consider quite a beautiful setting. Like if you look at the outside, it's not the grim, dark kind of world, at least outside the city.
Right. So some of that was intentional, right? We wanted to. There's a couple things going on there. Like number one, it's Babylonian inspired, right? So we wanted to allow that Babylonian theme to sort of come out a little bit. We also wanted to give room, right? Like in a cyberpunk setting, or in a traditionally cyberpunk setting, everything is bleak, everything is dark, everything is sort of neon and raining all the time. And when we look at our world, which is almost indistinguishable from a cyberpunk setting, like there's also room for people to enjoy a sunset or to enjoy a coffee, right, or to hang out with their friends or to whatever. And so he wanted to make sure that there was room for some of that to exist, and it wasn't all bleak, because part of what we wanted to do is to say you can win, right? You can actually move the needle here. You can actually make a change, even if it's just in your own little spot. So we wanted to make sure that there was room outside of the just absolute grinding grimness of a lot of cyberpunk. Yeah, and we wanted to also just say, hey, there's room for beauty as well. Bake
Yeah,
those
cool.
things in, and instead of just resigning ourselves to the aesthetic of cyberpunk, right, we sort of lean into like what are the themes here, right? It's not just a look, it's not just an aesthetic, but it's actually sort of an attitude of pushing back against those things which we don't like.
And Clockwork Tuba, good username, by the way. Cyberpunk with actual colors. So yeah, perfect assessment of it. I flipped ahead quickly there before, but envoys. So tell us, these are the character types that you can play.
Yeah, so players take the role of envoys, which are again representatives of their community. They they're they're problem solvers, right? So the idea is, it springs out of the idea of direct action, right? As a political force, where you can't count on the government or some corporation to do the things for your community that need to be done. So if you can't count on them, who are you going to count on? And so we came up with this idea of envoys, who are the ones basically elected or appointed by a community to take direct action on behalf of the community. So they do what needs to be done at any given moment, whatever that might be, whether it's taking care of a group of gangers, whether it's chasing down, like, hey, why isn't this restaurant getting its tomatoes every Tuesday? Go figure out why. Or whether it's investigating a haunted apartment on the other side of town. Like the envoys are the ones who are doing the things that need to be done so that the rest of the community can get on with the business of being the community, because the cops aren't going to do it, the government's not going to do it, the corps aren't going to do it, so you have to do it yourself. They come from, we have 7 species or lineages in the core book. This is where the fantasy side starts to emerge. We have orcs, we have humans, dwarfs, goblins, yetin, which are sort of like big folk, which are like yetis, sasquatches, ogres, that kind of thing. And then we have harmaku, which is an all-female species that are a bit like harpies. So yeah, those are the 7 species we have. We also have your envoys can be all sorts of customized, right, with the paradigm system we have. I will get to that in a bit, I think. But yeah, so you could be sort of anything from an artist to a mage, to a martial artist, to a priest, to a hacker. There's all sorts of things you can be as envoys, and the community isn't super picky about who becomes an envoy, as long as you're willing to do the job.
Cool. And I was getting an itchy trigger finger. I'm going to have to slow down. But the system, tell us about the system that you come up with.
So the system is unique. Well, it was unique when we started building it, but I've since learned that maybe 20 or so years ago there's another system that was close, and I forgot the name of it. But
That is the way it goes. Like, I mean, everything's been done before. So, but
yeah, nothing new under the sun, I guess.
yeah.
But it is it's a D6 system where you get a pool of D6s based on your skill rank in whatever you're trying to do. And then you would roll those dice, and then you would keep the highest 3, and then you would add those up, and that's your result. So it ends up, and then you compare that to a target number, which is very similar to D&D, if you're familiar with that, right? Instead of rolling D20s, we're rolling D6s and adding up the highest 3. But yeah, it gives us a really nice probability curve,
Yeah.
so that instead of D&D, where you have a 1 in 20 chance, or 1 in 20 chance of always critting, or 1 in 20 chance of missing no matter what you do. This allows you to, if you invest in a particular skill, you will be far less likely to ever critically miss, and your chances of success and your chances of doing above and beyond are getting a lot better as you put effort into that skill.
And what do dynamic and critical successes look like? Is there once you achieve those?
Yeah, so if you uh, go over 5, so your target number was 5 and you get a 10, that's a dynamic success, and um, that will double essentially the progress or the damage that you're trying to do with that skill roll. If you um, get 3 6s, right? If every one of your kept d6s is a 6, then that's a critical, which means it does triple the amount of progress or damage that you otherwise would have done.
Cool.
And criticals and dynamics, again, if you put more effort into building up one skill, you are far more likely to get a dynamic or a critical than you would otherwise.
Okay. And just to remind everybody, the links for the Kickstarter are in the description. It goes live tomorrow. So make sure you check it out and follow it so that you get notifications when it goes live. And with the envoys, talk about the values, I guess, the alignment system, so to speak.
Yeah, so it's not a traditional alignment system where you're sort of bound to like one of 8, you know, diverging ideals, but instead, every PC is going to have 3 values. These are sort of I will statements, right, that drive their character's behavior. So I will not sit back while children are being hurt, or I will make sure everyone has food, or I will make sure that the toilets in my community are running, right? Whatever your envoy values the most, right? You'll turn those into I will statements, and those will drive everything that your character does. In fact, um, instead of defeating enemies or performing jobs, you actually get advancement points, which are called fortune, by being true to your values. So at the end of every session, the GM will say, "Okay, were you true to your values? Did you uphold what you believe, or did you break some of those? And if you uphold them, then you get fortune, and if you don't, then that sort of triggers a loss of anonymity, right, or a loss of mental comfort for you. So there's a reason to stay true to your values and reasons to not want to break those, even if it happens to be convenient. The sort of complication is that your friends might not have the same values as you, and also your community has values, and your community sort of imposes those values on you, and so you have to sort of try to uphold those community values even if they aren't yours, because if you don't, then your community sort of gets soggy with you. So yeah, there's always a balance between not only what you're doing for the community, but how you're doing it and how you're perceived doing it.
Cool. And then the paradigms.
Yeah, so paradigms is so we don't have classes in Subversion. What we do have is paradigms, which are sort of clusters of abilities that make your character feel very unique, right? So if you wanted to be a gunslinger, right, you might take some abilities from certain paradigms, right, that allow you to maybe do trick shots, or allow you to shoot even longer range or whatever. But that will be a different group of abilities than somebody else who's a gunslinger might take, right? They might take something where it allows them to do quick draw, right, or allows them to use dual pistols or whatever. And so even if you're ostensibly doing the same thing, being a gunslinger, you're going to feel very different from the next gunslinger, because you're all going to be picking different paradigms. And paradigms range from everything from uh, scoundrel to sort of organized crime, to the different colleges of magic, to the different elements of the magic martial arts that we have, to following the different gods. Each different god has a different paradigm for their followers, um, ranging from being a rouser, right, or a mastermind. Like, so the paradigms are just so flavorful in that you can just pick and choose these different abilities from these different paradigms, and you can be as unique as you want to be and pick as many different paradigms as you want, or you can specialize and just go straight up into one paradigm and get those more unique and more powerful abilities.
Cool. And grit.
Yeah, so grit is our meta currency that each envoy has a certain amount of, and when you get to the point where you're about out of health, you can spend grit to prevent you from losing any further health, right? It's the sort of thing that allows you to keep going even when you're out of resources. But if you aren't, taking a lot of health damage and you don't need that for that purpose, you can actually use grit to boost your abilities, like certain paradigms. Certain abilities say you can spend 1 grit to make this happen, right? So you can enhance the abilities you already have. Also allows you to make a reroll. It just basically impose your will onto the world. But the GM also has grit. So when the players spend grit, the GM sort of gets it. Or when the GM forces a player to do a certain thing that they might not have otherwise wanted to do, then the GM gets to spend grit in order to sort of force those interactions that might not have happened otherwise. So, it's a sort of back and forth between the GM and the players using that grit.
Cool. And let's talk about your Kickstarter. It looks like you've got a lot of different reward levels that people can choose from. So let's kind of go through from the bottom to the top. We've got the PDF book for 25, I assume, US dollars.
Yeah. So it's going to be about 250 pages, maybe more, but we're we're trying to get it down to 250 pages. And so you're going to get at the $25 level the Subversion PDF, which a PDF version will be releasing right after the Kickstarter goes live, and then we'll sort of be updating that until we go to print. At the $60 level, you'll be getting the PDF and the core rulebook. And then at every level after 60, you'll be getting a free Obsidian Portal membership. They partnered with us and said, "Hey, we'll offer 3 months for free for all of your backers at a $60 level or above." So every level above 60 has a 3-month Obsidian Portal membership. At the $125 level, you get the PDF, you get the hardcover, and you get all of our assets on Roll20, which are going to be coming within the next year. So you'll get the Subversion core book. You'll get all 3 of our, or whatever adventure PDFs have been unlocked. You'll get all of the tokens and all of that kind of stuff. So everything that Subversion releases this year will go live on Roll20, and you'll get those for free at the $125 level. At the $250 level, you'll get the PDF, you get the hardcover, and then you'll get to sit at the table and play a game with myself or one of the other devs. And that game will be recorded, and then we're having an author turn that session, however long that session ends up being, into a novella, which will release later. So your characters from that game will be canonized into the lore. At 500, you'll get to
just one. Who's going to write the novella?
That Ava Rogers is the author that we have for writing that one. She's relatively new, but she's been with us the whole time, helping us out in the background. So we're pretty excited about that. Yeah. At the $500 level, you get the PDF, you get the hardcover, and you get to just basically straight up create a character for us to put in to the game. So whether that's the head of a faction, or the or a prominent priest, or one of the pre-gen characters, you get to work with one of the devs to basically create your own prominent NPC in the game. The $1,000 level is you get to basically, it's just like the $250 level, except it's you get to claim the whole table for you and your friends, and then we'll also be making that into the novella as well. Ava is also writing that one as well. And at the $1,500 level, you'll get the PDF, the hardcover, and you get to work with the devs to create an entire faction for the game. So whether that's a particular magic school, whether that's a particular gang, or whether that's a guild or a corporation, or whatever you want it to be, it'll be a faction in the game moving forward.
Cool. And I'm assuming they'll get their name in the credits of the faction design?
Yeah, anybody who has any that goes for the $250 as well. Anybody who has any sort of creative input or design will get their name in the credits. Yeah.
Cool. So you heard it here first. You can get your name in the book as a credited designer. So well worth the $1,500. Let's look at through some of the artwork. As you mentioned, or we talked about earlier, like it's got the cyberpunk feel to it, but it's not quite as grim dark as you might see normally.
Yeah.
And who's your artist? Who's been doing your art for you?
So we have a number of artists, and I'm gonna I'm gonna go to my email just to make sure we have a couple of artists with the same first name. So this art right here that we're looking at is uh, oh shucks, no, that's not who that is. You've caught me off guard. But
But
the
that's
I
okay.
will
We can follow up with that. But
yeah.
like, I guess the main thing is I really kind of appreciate the artwork and the vibes of it. And when you were envisioning the project, it's always kind of interesting to see when you first envisioned it. How did the artwork kind of enhance or grow with it?
Yeah, so it started off with the idea that um well it sort of fits and starts, right? Because oh, I'll say this: the art that you're looking at right now of the Seven Gods, that's by Marco Gonzalez, and he also did the cover art for us, and so he's a fantastic artist. We also have a guy named Marco Walters who does a lot of our line art, um, and Willow Bell is another one of our artists who does a lot of character design. And I will before before sometime I'll get back to you with the artist who did these sort of character pieces. Um, but yeah, when we were sort of trying to figure out not only who to get to do some of the art, but also um, how do we describe to them what we're looking for, we found that to be kind of challenging in that Babylonian styles and Babylonian culture is sort of dead, right? Like there's nobody alive that wears Babylonian clothing, right? There's nobody alive, who makes sort of the Babylonian theme stuff. So everything that we have is looking backwards, and yet the setting that we have is in the future, so it's looking forwards. And so we spent a lot of time with a lot of artists sort of pushing back and reining them in to say like what feels good, like what feels like a a reasonable setting, what looks like this could be lived in, this looks like it could be plausible if we put all this together. And so it's basically a big push and pull. And even as of now, we're still sort of getting art in and having to say like, this does this fit or does this feel good. And I think the challenge for creating something completely new is just having a good concept artist to work with you to sort of congeal all this together. And unfortunately, I'll say fortunately, when we did our first game, Gangs of the Undercity, we had an art director, and Gangs of the Undercity is actually set in the same world as Subversion. So the world itself, came together a little bit better, a little easier, I should say, with Gangs of the Undercity. And so thankfully I was able to use what our art director did for Gangs and sort of leverage that to say, here's what I want to see, and here's sort of what the what's a jumping off point for you. But the art director went on to bigger and better things, and so for this time Subversion, I've been the what passes as an art director for for good or ill, I suppose.
Well, it's looking good. And here's a sample of the character sheet.
Yes. That character sheet is absolutely fantastic. And let me pull that up. I will find out who. I'll give you the name of who did that.
Well, it's very colorful, that's for sure. And then
Yeah, that is an artist named Golkaran did the character sheet for us. We had one, and of course before it was just me doing whatever I could on Photoshop. But then we got Golkaran on, and he absolutely crushed it with this. And yeah, the colors, are sort of pushing the envelope as far as like brightness. But again, the game is sort of about pushing back against the darkness, and so we felt that was kind of a fun subversion of the trope.
and this might be a good opportunity to just talk about kind of art direction in general, as like you are the sole employee of Fragging Unicorns games, but you obviously have a lot of freelancers or contractors that are working for you, and it is a team effort. And but it's kind of similar to what most indie game designers kind of go through, right? It's like you're working with a lot of people to envision what you want.
Yeah. So it's weird, right? In that I would love to have more people sort of on staff. And we do have a core group of people who are sort of on staff, but it just doesn't make much financial sense to sort of bring people on staff to pay them nothing, just to say they're on staff. And so I haven't sort of been paid like yet for anything. Everything that that I would have gotten is sort of going back into the company right now. So it's actually if you're working for us as a freelancer, one of the authors or one of the artists, you're actually making quite a good living off of us. but I'm at the point, still where I'm trying to get this off the ground and putting stuff back in. So yeah, it's I'm technically the only employee, but the people that we have working for us, including the artists, including the other authors, including the other devs, are all very, very passionate about what we're doing. And so like that helps. Like it still feels like a company that's cohesive, even if I'm technically the only employee. But we do make sure to pay our people well, which is easier to do if they're freelancers than if they're if they're working for us.
But a good reminder to everybody out there that's watching this, like indie game design is not lucrative for the most part, and get out there and support your indie game designers and indie games, and make sure that the community flourishes and that designers are able to make enough money at least to keep going, right?
Yeah, absolutely. That was one of the things. In fact, one of the reasons why we started Fragging Unicorns was because the industry itself has a problem with paying people well, paying people on time, not abusing and harassing and right. So what the one of the origins of Fragging Unicorns was that like we thought, what if we could just do what everybody else is doing, but like just not be a jerk, right? Like pay people on time, pay people well, not harass them, but encourage them and give them opportunities and sort of help however we can. And so yeah, on that level, right? If that was our sort of goal, and it wasn't to just make money, then we're succeeding on that front, right? Because everybody who works for Fragging Unicorns, loves working for us. At least that's what they say to my face. And we pay people what they want, and we pay them when they want, and we try to be cool. And so far, we haven't harassed anybody. We haven't we haven't hurt anybody. So our track record is spotless. I should knock on wood now. Now something weird's going to come out of the woodwork. I don't know.
Well, that's good. And then we see on the screen here the early bird pledge. So how long is that early bird open for?
That's going to be up for 36 hours. So the first 3 days of the Kickstarter, you will be able to post, or you'll be able to back us at the $60 level, and you'll also get this free poster map. It's 36 by 24, so it's like a pretty honking big poster, and it is the continent of Azor. And right there in the middle, I don't think you can see it, but right in the middle of it is where Neo Babylon sits, or Neo Babylon being the sort of centerpiece of the setting. But it's this new continent that sits in between the old world and the new world on Earth, called Azor, and that map is incredibly detailed. You can't see it, but that'll be a pretty awesome map to have at a 24 by 36 scale, and you'll get it for free if you back within the first
36 hours.
Yeah. Oh, I should also say it's Mokosh is the artist that did some of those setting pieces. I found that while we were looking.
We had a question: 36 hours or 3 days?
Isn't that the same? Oh my gosh, I'm so dumb. No, it'll be 72 hours. Is that right? Yes.
I'm not a math person either, so it's good that Clifton jumped in here. So
yes,
3 days. You have 3 days to get this big fold. Is it a fold out or a rolled map?
It will be a folded map. Yes. I don't think like it's hard to ship big huge maps. That'll just make everything cost more.
Yeah, you guys start getting into tubes and all that kind of stuff.
Break out the steamer. Also, Cliff is one of our devs, so he's keeping me honest here.
Cool. Well, thank you, Cliff. And let's talk just a little bit more about where people can find the Kickstarter. So there's the long link. I wish Kickstarter would have like a little bit of less URL.
Yeah,
in their
you could
thing,
probably
but
just go to Kickstarter and search for Subversion or Fragging Unicorns. Yeah,
and there's your Twitter handles and Facebook, and you got a pretty strong community out there that is supporting you over the years.
Yeah,
and hopefully this even draws more eyes to your games.
I should have put our Discord link in there too, because our Discord is a pretty friendly place. But next time.
Cool. Well, you can always shoot me the link, and I'll include it in the show notes in the video description. Well,
good idea.
So February 21st coming.
Yes.
Do you have the time of day so that people can sit there waiting with their mouse?
Yeah, it'll be 12 o'clock Eastern. So like it's 20 something hours from now, 22 hours from now. I think. I'm not the math guy. Clearly.
So 36 hours. No, I'm just kidding. It's tomorrow. And we just had another comment. The Discord is an amazing place. So yeah, feel free to shoot me that. I'll include it in the video description, and we'll get as many people as we can. So and once again, Clockwork Tuba helping out 22.5 hours.
There you go. Oh, I was so close. Look at that. Thank you, Tuba.
Cool. Well, we are kind of getting close to the end here. And but I just want to say, like, it looks like a really incredible game. I think that it's going to be a big success. I look forward to seeing it come to fruition. You mentioned that people will get the PDF almost immediately. And do you have kind of a tentative timeline for the printing part of it?
We're hoping to go to print by December. But I have learned the last two Kickstarters that I should never, ever say we're going to do X by, here, because the world is what it is, and I have no control over that. So we're just not going to say it's going to be this. We're aiming for December. With Misspent Youth, the last Kickstarter we did, Fall in Love Not Online, we were actually able to hit our target very easily. We said we're going to have it out by December. We had it out by December, and everything went smoothly. But I can't control anything. So.
You can't control the world.
Yeah.
And shipping and logistics and inflation and all those lovely things that everybody has to deal with today. But
Misspent Youth is a very straightforward project.
Well, no, what? Did your thing cut out?
No, I'm like hearing like a.
Oh, that's our exit music.
So that's
starting. We're starting to wind down. That's my
shepherd's crook is gonna come and yank me off stage.
This is like the Oscars, and just like we're yanked.
Oh, real quick, I want to say Clockwork Tuba in the chat has an actual play running Subversion every Tuesday, and so he's got like 4 videos up on his YouTube channel. So check that out if you want to see it played out.
Sounds good. So Opti, I just want to say thanks for joining me today. Thanks for sharing your good work. And for everybody out there, check out Subversion on Kickstarter. It launches tomorrow. And if you are an indie game designer and you want to be on our Game Pitch show, please reach out through daikugames.com/game pitch and fill out the form, and let's get indie game designs out there. So Opti, thank you and welcome.
Thank you so much, Gary. Thanks for having me.
It's been a great time. And if once again, if you want to be on Game Pitch, go to the website and tell them Game Pitch Gary sent you.
Hey friends, are you looking for a game that is not Dungeons or Dragons? Well, we got exactly what you need at Daiku Game Pitch. We got zines, we got OSR, we got adventures. But wait, there's more. We got solo games, we got journaling games, we even got card games and dice games. Oh hell, I don't even know what kind of game this is, but we got it. And if you visit us in the next 2 minutes, you're gonna get all the zine quests, zine months, itch fund and backer kits, Kickstarters that you can handle. Visit us at www.daikugames.com. gamepitchgary.com and tell him a Game Pitch Gary sent ya.